Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are today, and welcome to today's discussion. My name is Chris Gaynor. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer here at magentIQ, and I'll be moderating the discussion as we go. Today's session is meant to be designed to be practical. There'll be some data points and some slideware up front, but very minimal, just to frame the session. And we want the session to be as interactive as possible. So please ask questions, share comments as we go. And so on that note, to test the interactivity, we've got a little poll to kick us off. This is to understand where everyone is in the room around where they are on their AI journey. So over on the poll section, you'll see some questions. Please cast your vote. And as that's happening, I'm joined by some excellent panelists today. And so whilst you're casting your votes, I'll throw it over to the panelists to get them to introduce themselves. John, can we start with yourself?
Yeah, happy to be here. I run a CPA firm in Utah, but we have clients and team members all throughout the United States, about 290 team members. Been around for about 15 years. We do tax, bookkeeping, payroll, all the stuff you would expect an accounting firm to do.
Perfect. Thank you, John. Incite Tax. Mark, over to yourself.
Good morning. My name is Mark Pritchard. I'm the CFO of a business called Harmar Mobility. We're based in Sarasota, Florida. We're a private equity-backed manufacturer of stair lifts and mobility equipment. We have a site here in Florida. We have a site in Missouri. We also acquired a business in Northern Ireland 2 years ago. So we're an international, rapidly growing business, and we tend to try and use AI as much as possible. I'm no AI expert, but I'm certainly not afraid to try things and try them again until we get it working.
Perfect. Expecting some great conversation then, Mark. And last but not least, David, over to you.
Thank you, Chris. My name is David Brain. I'm one of the co-founders and CEOs of magentIQ, and we support our clients with implementing AI and outsourcing in order to help them deliver more effective business processes.
Perfect. Mark, John, David, thank you very much for joining us today. I think we've given enough time to the votes now. I can see, yep, we've got a bunch of people who have cast their vote. If I click this, does it work? So not surprisingly, we've got majority of the room researching, experimenting. This is pretty consistent with what we're hearing in the market when we talk to people. Interestingly is the not started portion. I would love to pick up the phone and talk to everyone in the room here and understand kind of where they're at with that thought process. Evaluating quite low, and then running pilots is also interesting. It's moved up quite a bit from last time we ran this study. So it's interesting to see that people are starting to move from experimentation into pilots and running in production also quite high. Super helpful for framing the room. Thank you everyone for filling that in. I will give one slide and a 30-second plug on magentIQ, and then I'll move into setting the scene for today. But quick plug for magentIQ. As I said, magentIQ helps organizations go beyond experimentation, as we saw a large portion of the room are there, moving from a few Claude and ChatGPT and Gemini licenses to running fully orchestrated AI plus people operations that deliver tangible value. Building on decades of experience delivering AI and automation programs for leading companies, magentIQ brings together world-class talent with forward deployed engineers to effectively identify use cases, design agentic operating models, establish credible business cases, and critically get AI deployed into operations. Really importantly here is that we are not tied to a single tool or vendor. So we work across a range of technologies, always looking for the right tool for the right job at the right time. It's the end of the plug. Hopefully that was painless, but if you want to find out more about who we are, what we do, or some of our work, please reach out after the session. Right. Let's get on to the framing and we'll get into the discussion. So Deloitte recently published some research that said 87% of CFOs say AI will be extremely or very important to their finance operations in 2026. Not interesting, not worth watching, but extremely or very important. And more, 54% say integrating AI agents into finance will be one of their top transformation priorities this year. So the intent to adopt AI is very clear. Steve DeLucci at Deloitte's CFO program has said, leaders are looking into AI not just to improve efficiency within finance, but to help their organizations respond faster to changing market conditions and customer dynamics. Speed is critical. The question we hear most ourselves isn't so much where should we invest in AI, but where do we begin? And so with that, I'm going to dive into our second poll straight away, which is around use cases. And it's just to understand everyone in the room, as you're evaluating or experimenting with AI, what is the top? So there might be a few competing here, but pick just one. What is the top use case that you are exploring within your organization? And at this point, I wish I had some hold music getting us through, but I will fill it with words as I ramble slowly to the close of the poll. We're getting a few people fill in here. I'll give everyone a couple of seconds to submit here. A couple more seconds. Trey has it said, preaching to the choir here. How do we do this? We will hear more today, Trey. And then if you've got something specific, obviously, give us a shout afterwards. All right. We've got a few submissions here, about, more than 50% have answered here. So let's have a look. Automating simple tasks looks like the winner here, and it's pretty consistent with what we saw last time we ran this poll. Analyzing, extracting data and documents, document processing, data processing, really critical. Summarization, critical. As we go down, complex decisions and other. I'm always intrigued by that other box to find out what actually is happening there. But when we ran it last time, just to show a little comparison to last time, pretty consistent. And we did this probably about a year ago. And so whilst the zeitgeist have you believe that people are much further along, you are not alone where you are. And at this point, so the data is telling a story, which is the top use cases are typically not the most glamorous. Automation of tasks, document processing, summarization, fundamentally, it's all of the elements that enable the operation. And so, again, this is, sorry, I failed to click there. This is the use cases we saw last time as well. Very consistent with what we saw today. And so while the aspiration to adopt AI is quite high, the uplift, as you'll see from 23 to 24 here, dramatically went up year on year in terms of percent adoption. From 25 to 26, the adoption has fundamentally slowed. Gartner believes that people who are further along in their journey, so past the experimentation phase into rolling out pilots or even further, are 23% more optimistic once they've gone through the hurdles and they've understood what it takes to get it into production than people who are at the start of their journey, which are around 7% feeling confident. So clearly getting started is the hardest part. And critically, it requires us to look at some hard truths. So this is the last slide before we dive into the discussion, but getting started is hard. First, 91% of organizations report low to moderate impact initially in the early stages. Second, 48% of CFOs cite resistance in terms of uncertainty and doubt as their biggest challenge. So not technology, not budget, but people. And third, 70% of AI projects simply fail to meet expectations. And typically it's due to data quality, talent gaps, overestimation of what the tech can do on its own without addressing the underlying processes and governance. And so food for thought here, I'm going to shift into the discussion here. So you can close down the slide portion and move the panelists into frame if you wish. But why don't we start with a real simple question for the panel, which is, I've used AI about 30 times in this discussion so far. It means a lot to a lot of different people. How do we define AI today in the context of finance and or accounting? John, would you mind kicking us off?
Yeah. I mean, just like the poll revealed for us, AI is how do we automate some of the simplest tasks that can be a bottleneck that don't require really any brain power or the need for a human to be involved with client experience. But it's interesting. I heard Steve Wozniak just the other day in a commencement address say AI stands for actual intelligence, and as humans we have AI. I think there's going to have to be that balance between what can we get the AI as in the software and the robots and all the stuff behind the scenes. How do we pair that with still the uniqueness of us being humans? I think that's going to be an interesting conversation we have and going into the future and probably in this meeting as well.
Awesome. Actual intelligence. Love it. Mark, how are you defining it, or at least explaining it?
I'm just encouraging my team to embrace AI and try and use it. And a good example of how I want my team to use it, I've got my 10,000 hours of Excel experience. I also have junior people who will never need to get that 10,000 hours of Excel experience if they use AI properly. And I'm trying to impress upon them, use it to enable you to build things using Excel, which I can build because I've got that experience. You can jump right ahead and be proficient on tools like Excel if you use AI properly. And that includes being able to interpret the output. It includes being able to challenge what AI's first response is and probably work with AI to get through to that third or fourth response until it's ready. And also, I try and encourage people, don't just say, go build me a model, because it will be too broad. It will miss some of the subtleties. Ask step-by-step questions. How do I do this step? How do I put this into a table? What formula do I use here? How do I structure that formula using this data? So I'm trying to have people use it as a real assistant rather than completely replace me.
Assistance, co-worker, super important. David, how are you? How are you thinking about what it is, what it means? How do we explain it?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, because I think it's one that every software and platform firm under the sun have tried to claim their tool to be. So in the last few years, we've seen all sorts of things now referred to as AI. The simplest definition that stuck with me was software that enables you to perform the tasks and perform the work that would normally require human intelligence. But that in itself is still quite broad. When we were at the back end of 2015, 2016, 2018, around that time, robotic process automation was all the trend. And that was defined as the leading AI tool. Well, if it's doing things that require human intelligence to perform the tasks, and now you're putting it into an automation, then I suppose it fits that brief. In finance and accounting, they can extend to obviously all of the OCR and similar technologies, IDP technologies in terms of interpreting documents and gathering information. But more interestingly are the latest generations of AI. So we're seeing it with the foundational models and how that can be used for co-work. I haven't quite got my 100,000 of Excel, but I have spent way too much of my career in Excel trying to get that calculation to work out, network days or to do various sum ifs and all that sort of thing, which I'm sure is breeze to people with the right skills. But where it's now incredible is that you can just ask tasks through a Claude or an OpenAI type interface, or from within Excel with CoWork, and it will give you the right calculations and the right formulas to use. So starting to get into that space, but where I think perhaps the most interest is how can you go beyond that? How can you get AI to perform whole workflows by itself, or at least the majority of it, and then come out to people where needs be? How can you use it for things like, continuous closing or shortening the window for month end or period end closing? How can you use it for analytics? How can you use it to get rid of some of that transactional load that sits across finance and accounting so much today?
Perfect. Actual intelligence, augmented intelligence, and then co-working is my paraphrase there. This is the future, right? Everyone talks about it. Everyone's got different views on it. But before we dive into the operational realities of where we are today, why don't we have that little chat about what the future actually looks like? So if we fast forward 5 years, and that seems like a crazy long time in the space these days, or in the technology space these days, what are people doing? What are machines doing? What stops? What changes? I'm talking specifically finance and accounting. And John, you may have a different lens here in terms of accounting as a service here. But Mark, if you were to cast your third eye forward to 5 years' time, what does the future of finance and accounting look like when AI and people are doing things together? Maybe not.
Like you say, 5 years is a long time. Who knows where that technology is going to take us in the next 5 years? I can see a point in the next 1 to 2 years where we're already doing this. We're taking out some of the small software subscriptions that we have. I'm going to use an accounting example. We've used a system called Blackline for balance sheet reconciliations. It's a little heavyweight for us, but it's okay. It's good. Using a combination of ChatGPT, Gemini, and Copilot, we've built our own version using SharePoint, using Microsoft Flow. And basically all we've done is started with the prompt, how do I replace Blackline? And that saves us $20,000 a year. Okay, it's not earth-shattering money, but for a private equity business of our size, you put a multiple on that, that's real value generation. And once we've done it with Blackline, so we're not actually using any tool that is running through ChatGPT or Claude on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis. We're using Microsoft Flow, we're using Microsoft SharePoint, but ChatGPT and Gemini and Copilot have guided us through, here's how you build it, here's how you build the flow, here's how you structure the data set for it to work for you. We've proved that case out in that one example for Blackline. How many other little pieces of software do we have around the business that we can just take out one by one?
Interesting. So this is a modernization play, is it, Mark, or is it a
I mean, it's
cost-cutting? Both. I mean, how do you?
It's just we're paying subscriptions for software that solves small problems that bolt onto our main ERP system, to our main business systems. We don't need to be paying those anymore. To create this new version of a SharePoint site that does what Blackline does, we could probably have done it without AI. We can do it in a fraction of the time using AI. We can do it in a couple of hours instead of weeks and weeks and testing, and we have something up and running pretty immediately, and we can take the learning from that and move it on to the next process. Probably, I mean, I've been in businesses that have used SharePoint and Flow, different versions of Flow, Nintex, for anybody who remembers that. Many times over the last 15, 20 years, all that's happened is we've cut the development time down, we've cut the risk down, and we don't need a third party to help us. We've got AI to do that for us.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, accelerating that journey. David, if I throw it over to you, same question. If you fast forward, what's happening in the future? Where have we got to in this magical future?
Yeah, fantastic. I mean, it's great that point about sort of reducing those point solutions of SaaS tools. It's referred to as the SaaS apocalypse that we're just going to enter now, where people can just vibe code up their own versions of tools and then refine them until they can replace some of those point solutions. And I think that's definitely going to be a continued trend that we see. 5 years is a really hard one to a hard timeline to look at. But what I'd expect to see a lot of organizations moving to within that time frame, at least, is becoming less transactional and more insight driven in terms of how the work is done, with a lot of automation in place and AI to perform the day-to-day work, freeing up people's time to focus on the value add. And we're seeing that with some clients who are, using AI in different ways to classify documents or to extract information from documents or data that comes in through various means in order to then give the information to do end-to-end processing, all without the need for people. As I say, period end closing and continuous billing are other use cases that we come across. So I think it will become less manual, less sort of driven by a calendar, and it will be more continuous and be more automated.
Interesting. John, what's your vision for accounting in 5 years?
I agree with David. I was thinking about back in the day when I had to actually reconcile a bank account, even in QuickBooks with the software, how I had to pull up the statement. I'd look at QuickBooks and I'd go back and forth and manually click off every single transaction. And even now they have an easy, you just upload the statement. We had a scenario where we had to fire our controller. He was very behind. And so I reconciled like a year's worth of books, and we're a large firm. So we're talking tens of thousands of transactions. I mean, it took me like 35 minutes. Most of the tedious stuff, I see that going completely away. Like month-end closing, year-end closing, AI will be able to do that. You know, oh, the clock struck midnight. Okay, Cinderella, you know, you lost your shoe. The books are closed all at the same time. I think a challenge we're going to have. So 5 years, I actually think that becomes automated. I think longer future, though, what's going to happen, though, is like, you know, when I started my career, I cut my teeth and got a lot of experience from doing the nitty-gritty manual stuff. We're going to need to figure out how do we get inexperienced people to gain the experience, because most of us benefiting from AI right now, we have the experience, so we can kind of know, like, that's not the right answer. I mean, Mark already mentioned, like, the first response from AI, a lot of times you need to push back on it. How are we going to bridge that gap? I think that's a longer 5 to 10 year issue we're going to have to face. But as David said, I see all the tedious stuff, I mean, happening in a blink of an eye.
That's brilliant. And yeah, sorry, just to add on to that, I think it's a great point about how do we train up the next generation. Some of the clients that we're speaking to actually are, you know, we see the sort of entry level roles, and we see like, oh, that's a great opportunity in order to apply automation. And we're getting pushback saying, no, actually, that's our training ground. You know, leave that alone, because that's where we put our new people on in order to see how strongly they develop. And then that's where we want our experts to be. So, yeah, I think it's a great point that just because you can use AI doesn't necessarily mean it's the best thing for you or your business in all cases.
Amazing. So, I mean, I like the flow from cost out, speed, modernize, improve, and now we're into culture, right? It's I mean, it's an interesting challenge. I don't think anyone solved it, but you know, fundamentally, it's down to the areas you're looking at, and that's I think my next question, which is, you know, as we see, we go around the business and we're looking at some of these areas where we could or should apply AI and or automation. What are the areas we're seeing? What are the areas we're looking at? What are the areas that we think actually this does make a good use case? And I think maybe we start with, before we get to benefits, maybe we start with challenges. So why is AI a good use case? John, maybe if you could kick us off with some of those areas.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you practically how we looked at it. We kind of sat down and said, what's our current bottleneck? And what's the actual thing we're doing inside of the business? So for us, the first one we looked at, which felt like an easy lift, was when we finish a tax return, our tax pros finish a tax return, we need to send out a copy to the client. We need the client to sign an authorization for us to e-file it. We need to receive that e-file, and then we need to actually file the tax return. That was easily identified bottleneck, very tedious stuff. Not a whole lot of human interaction from a customer experience standpoint is needed. And so we're like, let's have AI do that. And so we just kind of went down the list. And once we solved that, what's the next bottleneck? So for us, we literally, as you said, well, what's the challenge? We looked at the challenges. What was the obvious bottleneck? That's anything in there that was repetitive. It's the same process every single time. Easy candidate for AI.
Just if I can scratch at that a little bit more, and then we'll move on to David there. But is it repetition is the main driver, or is it there's a human element to it, there's a cost element to it, and the repetition then compounds? How do you?
Yeah, I mean, the repetition compounds. I mean, our team, for example, they were taking about 12 minutes per client, and when you have 20,000 tax returns, that's a lot of labor costs. And the bot could do it in like 5 minutes. And it could work 24/7. So the easiest lifts for us to get started, I mean, that was kind of the question you presented. People are struggling, where should they get started? Repetitive tasks that are effectively the same every single time, easiest entry point to get AI going into your business.
Perfect. David, care to add?
Well, John's given such a good answer there. I'm going to struggle to add to it, but I mean, he's absolutely right. And where we've seen clients do achieve the most is where you focus on the pain. So, where is it hurting your organization today? Because that's necessary for several reasons. Quite often, you see a lot of pilots and POCs fail within the AI space because I think people forget what, when they say POC being proof of concept, they forget which concept they're trying to prove. So you go through and you'll implement something, but it may not deliver the business value. Whereas if you always keep that pain in mind and sort of really focus on where you can have the most impact on your team, it not only means that you'll immediately see the benefits when you go live, but it's something that everyone can relate to, which really helps across your organization sort of build that momentum and the desire to do more. AI is this massive amorphic, entity that is quite threatening to a lot of people and a lot of organizations, and they're and is seen as something that's going to take the jobs. I think if it can do something which everybody is experiencing as a pain point within the organization, it's a great way to get started and change the perspective at which how you look at AI and what it can do for you. To the points of, sorry, go on.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, to the point of, what characteristics of a process are well suited. Definitely when you're looking at normal, sort of straightforward automation, look at anything that's repetitive and rule driven. But where the foundational LLMs came up with the generative LLM work, it's now extended beyond that. So you can look at your communication to with in and out of the organization, so be it directly to customers or be it to your suppliers. But you can also do the analysis work, and that's really where a lot more value is coming. Now, in line with some of the questions, how do you know whether or not the analysis is good analysis? That really comes in terms of two things, how you implement it and then how you use the data. I think it's always great for it to be directional, but to be really clear on when you're presenting the analysis as to what is derived from rules and you can be absolutely certain about, and which is narrative. So that's an area where you can still, you still put all of the boundaries and guidelines in to make sure that you are getting accuracy, but you don't treat it in the same way as something where you're pulling, data into a table, for example.
Perfect. Mark, thoughts on use cases with a focus on, what it's solving, and we're going to switch to benefits next. So I might give you a double question in a minute, but yeah, where are you seeing some interesting use cases and the challenges they're solving?
Just touching on something David was just talking about there. It's not direct answer, but there's always a fear that AI is going to get something wrong. It's going to get a formula wrong in a spreadsheet. If I take an AI generated spreadsheet and put it into a board deck and present it with errors, that's on me. Mm-hmm. If I take a spreadsheet which has been designed by a junior analyst and don't interrogate it and put it into a board deck and present it, that's on me. It's no different. The review doesn't go away. And this is where, there's a lot of talk about AI taking people's jobs. There's a level of experience and humanness about what we do, which AI is going to really struggle to replicate. We do not delegate the responsibility for the accuracy of the numbers just because AI has generated it. It's a helpful tool. It still needs to go through a level of review, and whoever's creating that spreadsheet using AI needs to apply the same level of rigor and review as they would to any other spreadsheet. So I was sort of following on from David's point there. Chris, remind me of the question. You were talking about use cases, correct?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Where do you see this stuff? Where do you see this stuff solving problems? What is the challenge it's solving?
I think it solves, for me, day-to-day questions that I would go to other people for. My first port of call is often AI now. So I'm in the middle of building a Power BI model. I hit a roadblock in the coding. I don't give that to a junior analyst. I ask AI, and within 5 minutes, I've probably got the answer in that single line of code. Don't build me a full model. Just tell me the code for that piece, please. asking questions such as, I got a pile of paper, I know 12 inches deep of paper for, we were named in a legal case. I'm not reading that. Scan it into AI, and AI summarize it for me. Why are we named in this? So just making that first level question, asking AI, and then if you need an expert, if you need an attorney, if you need a subject matter expert to dig deeper, at least focus them on where to dig. So I think asking those first level questions, and also encouraging your team to ask those first level questions, that saves so much time. And sometimes it turns into, hey, I've built a new version of Blackline. Sometimes it just solves a specific issue, but it inevitably saves time and gets us to a point where we've got an 80% good answer every time.
Perfect. And I said you would probably hang on to the microphone for the next side, which is the other side of that question, which is, you kind of mentioned it there, saving time is the benefit. As you, and we've talked about looking at pain points, looking for pain points for AI, it's a great place to solve it. Do we also look the other way, which is, imagine we could do this, or there's a benefit we've not achieved or not had before? The question is, what are the benefits within these use cases that we're seeing today? Real benefits, right? Not just it could do this, but what is it actually doing for you, or what are you hoping it can do based on what you're seeing now?
Yeah, I mean, I think you touched on it initially. Just time saving. Those first level questions, that saves a huge amount of time. You still need a human at the end of it to do some interpretation. You still need a human to pass judgment on the output and maybe ask a second or third level question. Efficiency and speed to react. It's almost that the speed to react is more important than the time saving itself. I find there's a lot of people who's, it's almost shifting your mindset to when you've got a question, don't go to your boss, don't go to the subject matter expert, honestly go to AI. And then if you're not satisfied that it's taking you in the right direction, then you can take what you've learned and pass it through to the subject matter expert. So yesterday I was looking at, which states are we registered in, which states should we be registered to do business in? Immediately it pointed me at, well, where's your payroll tax say? So here's my payroll tax report. You should be registered in these states. At that point, I go to my agent and say, can you register me in those states? But it's that first level question and being prepared to ask it and not afraid of asking a second and third question until you get something that you can then use. But you've cut the time frame down from the initial question to something that's actionable to minutes instead of hours or days.
Right. Perfect. A stack of benefits in there: time saving, speed to react, efficiency. John, from your perspective, maybe an extension of that question isn't just the benefits, but are there certain KPIs? Learning could be a KPI, experimentation, a big part of that is actually learning. Are there certain KPIs as softer benefits from the stuff you're seeing or experimenting with?
Yeah, I mean, a couple examples, though I already shared the one. We call that the client review stage, right? One KPI that's important is hours spent on the task, labor hours. And so, we have an actual cash savings that our admin team doesn't have to spend as much time on that process anymore. So one of the other lower hanging fruits that we started with was, if any on the call are familiar with the tax industry, you know that getting documents from clients is a big headache. And so I don't feel like there needs to be any sort of human interaction for us to push out an email that says, please fill this out. And then to remind them, we need you to fill this out. And then to remind them, please send in the documents. And then to say, thank you for sending it. Like the whole process of gathering the tax documents. Our intention with that, we want our admin team. So we don't want to lose jobs. Like people say, oh, AI is taking jobs. no, AI is shifting the jobs. So in our case, we want our admin team to focus more on the human interaction. So when the client does call in, like, I got your email, I'm stuck, they can actually talk to a person, and we have the resources to do that. Again, from a KPI standpoint, that decreases my labor cost. But another KPI they would fall into that is client retention. Now customers are getting a much better experience because every time they call in, someone's immediately available and can take the 10, 15 minutes, 30 minutes to just talk with them, which is something we haven't had the luxury to do ever since I've been in the business. Gathering client source documents has been a bottleneck my entire career. And for now to have an opportunity for AI and RPA and all, whatever we call it, agentic agents to do all that, so our humans are completely available to speak to other humans, that's a big deal for us.
I love it. The customer experience angle, I don't think is one perhaps that gets talked about a lot in this space, but super important, as you say, for retention, growth as well as retention. David, how do we look across a bunch of customers when we think about KPIs, when we think about benefits, how do we normally look at the world, maybe is the question, yeah.
How do we identify, if we're talking about benefit type still, I mean, we tend to use a framework where we look at cashable and non-cashable, for starters, and then whether it can be quantified or not. So some are going to be very easy to quantify cashable benefits, such as hours saved. That can mean that you're removing headcount or reallocating headcount. When I say removing headcount, typically removing it from that process so that you can reallocate it to other parts of the task. You've also got other hard benefits in that space as well, like cycle time. So, it might take a couple of minutes of a person, but because there's only a few people doing that role and they've got a queue to get through, it can mean that it can take several days or several weeks in order for that task to be performed. But if you can automate it using AI, then you are getting that task performed within a matter of seconds. So there's time savings, there's cost savings. You then get into some of the other ones around benefits such as satisfaction. So you've got in the intangible and the non-cashable, you may have things like not only customer satisfaction, but also employee satisfaction, which is huge. I mean, nobody likes to do robotic, automatable work. So being able to remove that and giving people the opportunity to spend more time with your clients or to spend more time doing sort of higher value work and really seeing that there's a career path for them in this space means that attrition goes down. So that's a huge benefit to an organization that goes beyond just the cost of re-recruiting, but you've got the retraining, you've got all of that institutional knowledge, those relationships with your clients that you lose whenever you see attrition. And then I suppose the last one I just point out is the cost of rework as well. So, yes, there are AI hallucinations. You've got to make sure that how you deploy it, you protect yourself from it, be it if you're doing it in an assisted way, such as, you're using the software in order to answer questions in terms of how do I do this, or if you're using it unassisted, where you've got, all of your documents getting analyzed and categorized and filed as they come in from requests from a customer. So either way in which you do that, you've got to make sure that you're managing quality, and there are quality improvements, because if you're doing that with people, there will be more there'll definitely be more human error, there'll be more absolute error. So if you develop it right, then you're not dealing with all of those, consequences in terms of cost or delays or penalties or fines that you otherwise would be. So if you can capture all of these and then work out which type of benefit is most important to you and your role and your organization at that point, that can really help you steer where to start as well, where the biggest bang for your buck is as you approach AI.
Perfect. Again, while you've got the microphone there, David, I mean, the key here is the cashable side, I guess, where a lot of programs are stood up with the view of cost reduction, growth, bottom line, top line improvements, or some way to measure that more quantitative ROI. In your experience, what's a realistic timeline for meaningful ROI from an AI initiative? And I appreciate how long's a piece of string, but if we were
hard not to go there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it depends, and sorry, this is the little bit of the caveat of the how long is a piece of string. It depends how ambitious you're being. But, and what I would recommend on that is to not try and, eat the elephant in one sitting, take off small bites and get the benefits of each initiative before you take on the next challenge. So with that, I would say that typically you can expect benefits within the 3 to 5 months. But I'm talking here about rolling out a fundamental change in how you deliver a process. So this is implementing it into your ERPs or your lines of business is going to, making sure that it's sort of hands off with minimum human interaction. So that's if you're doing the workflow style AI. If you're doing more of the co-pilot AI, or if you're getting that to build an application for you, then it really can take hours to days in terms of benefit. So I'd say that both are completely valid and are the right thing to do for organizations. The scale of benefit is commensurate with the scale of effort that you put in. So quick wins you can achieve within a matter of minutes or hours. But the larger sort of institutional changes, that can take several months, say 4 or 5 months.
And just so I'm clear, the latter example you gave is more like going to an LLM, typing in, hey, give me an answer to this, versus the former you spoke about, the workflow was changing ways of working, process transformation. Is that?
Yeah, exactly. Like if you want to change your document intake across a whole organization and then, input it into systems and, put in the automations to outreach to customers where things aren't sitting there. If you want to cater for all of that complexity, it's going to take longer. But it doesn't mean you've got to wait for that all to be in place before you start realizing the benefits.
Okay, perfect. Mark, you mentioned, you're pushing the team toward AI first. Do you usually have I appreciate ROI might be nebulous, but do you have an ROI in mind that you're hoping to see, or is it simply get at it and let's see what else we can take on? How do you start to track ROI in that sense, or what is the timeline to that ROI in your mind?
I think it's very difficult to tie ROI to a lot of the projects that we end up using AI for. It's more a way of working and a mindset. If I think about that example with Blackline, that's easy. It's 20,000 a year that we save. But that's unusual. If I look at the cost of our finance team cost overall is down 25% on 18 months ago. And we're doing more, we're doing it faster, we're closing in 1 to 2 days. That's from using AI in every little thing that we do. A specific example, a junior guy in my team was trying to reconcile some accounts payable information. He threw it into ChatGPT, I expect it was. Left it for 30 minutes. It was quite complex. And then came back to it with the answer. It was a foreign currency item on 2 or 3. And it reconciled it to the penny. That would have taken days of his time. So just making sure that again, it's going back to that thing I was saying about the first level question goes to AI and see what time savings you get from that. Ultimately, the 25% reduction in cost of the finance team that we have, which is 2 heads lower than it was a year ago, and there are outsourcing savings as well. That's the result of it. Can we tie it to every single thing that we do? No. The Blackline use case, that was, as much as anything, that was a test case for can we replace software subscriptions with homegrown solutions using AI, and the answer is yes, we can. So I guess it's too early for us to be looking for specific ROIs from these things. It's more a mindset and a way of working and making sure that my team are embracing AI, making sure they're using AI, and then the savings will come later.
Okay.
We also, in the last 18 months as an organization, we haven't hired any SG&A headcount. And our growth has been top line about 25%. Again, I can't point to any single project, but it's a way of working. It's a mindset.
Sure. Yeah, there's a good general feeling, I guess, a vibe, as they say. John, I mean, you're doing a lot within this space. I mean, how do you view timeline? How do you view the measurement of ROI?
Yeah. I mean, so we had started looking heavily at AI probably 3 years ago when we had a tremendous growth, and our client portal third-party software we were using was like, oh, you're using way more space and you have way more users. We need to increase your fee, and here's your new quote. And it was significant, like 6 figures significant, just for clients to access a portal. And I'm like, okay, but the only difference is storage. Like, we're not using any other features. And so they're charging me effectively a 15x multiple on their cost of storage, when we all know what AWS costs these days, which is way less expensive to just get it directly from AWS. So we actually engaged with someone like, hey, can you create this? We got a quote. Their quote to build it was about the same cost as my annual fee was going to be. Now, Magentic luckily came in and saved us, because that previous provider ended up, it's like, oh, AI is cool. I'm going to use AI to try to create AI, and I'm going to duct tape all these things together. It was bad. And so Magentic came in and helped us. And so now they've helped us rebuild the portal. We started that conversation about 6 months ago. The portal was functional after 3 months. And kind of to David's point of the different things you can do with the AI, like workflow wise, we're still in the process of adding some things because we have a long list of things. But as he said, you kind of want, oh, do this, it's working, cool, move on to the next one. But at the same time, we noticed our e-signature stuff. So we're using a third-party software to get signatures from clients. It's a little cumbersome on our end of a bunch of clicking our admins have to do and sending into a different system. And we're like, hey, Magentic, can we just build this into our portal? That took 4 weeks. So their team jumped in, did their thing. Do you have a part of the process where you then do internal testing before you release it to your clients? And so we got an immediate, within a month, we had an immediate benefit of e-signature being much more smooth for our team and the clients. And then I'll also add, we have our head of IT is really into this stuff too. And so within one business day, we just said, we would love to be able to do something like this. He's like, oh, cool. Like, he just heard it. And then at the end of the day, he came and said, hey, by the way, I just did this. We use Zoom. So the transcripts happen in Zoom and like a sales call, for example. We want to know how our sales guys are doing. Takes the transcript from the sales call, which is automatically happening, automatically pulls it into an LLM, analyzes it based on a criteria we provided it. It gives it a grade. It tells us where the sales rep could have been more personable, didn't cover the benefits right, all those things. And then we get a report, and the sales rep now has a grade for that sales call. And he built that in a day. And so hopefully that gives some examples. And from an ROI standpoint, I'm saving, $150,000 to $200,000 a year because we now have our own portal, and my cost of like maintaining it and paying for the storage myself, significantly less expensive. And so across the board, I think people can probably see from those examples some immediate ROI stuff.
That's perfect.
Brilliant. John, I out of all of those examples, the one that resonates, and we're so delighted to be doing these projects with you, has been a fantastic partner through this fantastic client. But the one that still sends shivers down my spine is actually the third one that you say around grading sales calls. Chris now grades me every time I get on a call with a client through something he's built in Claude. And I never do too well, but I'm pretty sure it's also just Chris really just saying what he thinks, but just putting Claude's name to it.
It's it's like a mini therapy session. It's how I get my own. So we're coming up to the last 2 questions here, and I think it's a few questions coming in here. We'll attack those after the next 2 sections. But I think really importantly, John, David, Mark, we've all got to this point of building, deploying, running. there were some challenges along the way in terms of readiness. It could be a data challenge, it could be a process challenge, it could be a people challenge. And so as we think about the future vision you painted and some of the interesting projects we're talking about, how do you approach readiness across the organization? How do you communicate? How do you establish frameworks? How do you get the right things in place so that when you present something like an AI solution back, there isn't huge resistance, it doesn't break? Mark, to your point, it doesn't flash up the wrong numbers. Now, how do you get ready, I guess, is the question here. John, do you want to maybe kick us off?
Yeah, it's a simple answer. It's communication. I mean, the very first thing we attempted, even before the portal, was this client review bot. And when we first created it, one of the immediate challenges was the steps that the bot ended up doing was like 400 and some odd steps. And in our head, we're thinking, there's like 7 steps. How did it become 400? And so we had to dig into that. The team member we assigned was like, oh, it'd be nice if we did this and this and this and this. It's like, what? Can we just focus on these 7 steps, not the whole 400 level decision tree that it needs to go through? So that was a part of a communication issue with the person we assigned who understood the workflow, but then through the process of it, you actually benefit from improving the workflow altogether, because then you start questioning, why do we do that step? And then we've also learned, because we just launched it and the team's like, what the heck is this? And then the admin were like, wait, am I going to have a job in a year? And so communicating along the ways, this is our intention, this is our vision. We want to free you up from the minuscule tasks that you probably don't enjoy doing at all and don't involve talking to a client, to spending time. For us specifically, we want our admin in the email inboxes of our professionals so they can help manage client communication for the professionals. And one thing that we've now also since doing, because we're kind of in this now and we have the portal and we have a bunch of initiatives we're wanting to do, we just give the team a weekly update. Hey, here's currently where all these projects are. So we're reiterating the vision every single week now, and we're telling them, here's the update, here's the things we're working on, here are the bugs we've identified that are going to be fixed. But ultimately, communication is really, in what my experience is, the only way to fix readiness.
Perfect. Sounds scarily like change management is a pretty important part of all this. Mark, thoughts on readiness, right? What is needed? What should we think about?
My advice is pretty simple. Don't wait until you're ready, because you never will be. Dive in.
Hands-on tools, breaking things.
Go play. Go try things. Go fail. Make sure you're not failing with anything business critical, but learn from it. But don't wait until you're ready. You never will be.
Okay. Perfect. David, readiness. What does it mean?
I think this is such a great panel, because we've got so different perspectives and different use cases and how it's being deployed. And I think both of them are completely right. So I think when it comes to more of the assistant type, deployment, where you're using it to ask questions, asking it to build apps for you, the vibe coding piece, yeah, as Mark says, spot on. I mean, just keep trying with it, test its abilities, develop your skills so that you know how better to prompt, how better to interpret the data that comes back, how to move it forward. And it's interesting, like what John was saying about the 400 steps, which that's so common as well, and is how I started personally on my journey of vibe coding out some of these apps as well. Mine would be like, I want this tool to do everything, and then you get 60% of everything built, and then it breaks. So so I think there's something there around just learning how to attack it and do small incremental tasks and get those automations and those AIs in place. When it comes to the other side of deployment, which is if you're going to build this into you're building it into a portal for your clients, you're going to build it into your workflow, where all of the processes, transactions are going to go through. I think there's a lot to be said for making sure that you understand the processes fully and that your data is in a good state. So before launching magentIQ, we actually bought a company, Ian and I, which focused on providing sort of arm's length system implementation work around automations. And what we found is that quite often we would sit down with the buyer and go through all of their requirements, go through their business processes. We would build it exactly as requested. They'd be delirious and very happy with it until it went live. And then they'll find that, yes, that's true. No, you do need to handle that case differently. And yep, no, I know why that doesn't work and you need to change that. And it was painful, that implementation. So we've adapted our processes so that we're able to, through a living lab approach that we take on a little bit of the work. We really live the work. We make sure we understand it fully. And we've got a forward deployed engineer sitting there with the person who's performing the work to really understand it fully, so that the work is AI ready before we then deploy the automation and the AI in order to make it successful. So depending on the approach you take, there's a greater amount of data structure and sort of readiness you need for one versus the other, but they're not mutually exclusive. So I would recommend doing both. Use AI assistance, get used to it, tinker, deploy, trial, test, be prepared to fail. But at the same time, look more fundamentally across your process. What are the big initiatives you can be doing? And prepare yourself for that. Get the processes in line, get the data ready.
Perfect. We have got about 1 minute here, and we've had a couple of questions come in. I unfortunately will have to close the session here. We've captured the questions. We will come back with answers to everyone after the session. I'll farm these out to the right people to answer them. But we've unfortunately run out of time. We could probably talk for another 6 hours or so here, but alas, we'll have to carry on for part 2. Massive thank you to our panelists. Thank you very much, John, Mark, David, for joining us today. And thank you everyone for listening. Really appreciated you spending some time with us. If you'd like to learn more about magentIQ, magentIQ is our website. We'll be sending out a note with the recording afterwards. But please reach out, get in touch. Happy to carry on the conversation after here.